Welcome to Mission Sonlight, reporting this quarter from the West Central Africa Division and from the Media Missionaries of Network 7 Media Center. When the Northern Europe Division was organized in 1929, West Africa was assigned to it. Over the next 70 years, many changes and reorganizations took place on the continent. On October 8, 2002, the annual council of the General Conference Executive Committee acted to create the West Central Africa Division, the Southern Africa Indian Ocean Division, and the East Central Africa Division, thus establishing three independent divisions based solely in Africa. West Central Africa Division, or WAD, was reorganized in 2013. WAD covers the territory of Western Africa from the Sahara Desert in the north to the Atlantic Ocean on its south and west. WAD's headquarters is located here in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. Today, there are just over 5,000 churches with a membership of about 1 million Seventh-day Adventists across this region. The first seeds of the Three Angels message were sown in West Africa by Miss Hannah Moore, an American missionary of another Christian denomination. Moore was visiting in Connecticut while on furlough from Sierra Leone when she received from Stephen Haskell a copy, among other books, of J.N. Andrews' new work, History of the Sabbath. She returned to Africa as a teacher in a Protestant Episcopal orphanage in Liberia and studied the books carefully. Haskell made sure Moore received more books by mail. She studied them all. Hannah Moore soon became convicted of the Sabbath and other distinctive doctrines of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. She found it hard at first to switch from worshiping on Sunday to worshiping on Saturday. But by the time she wrote her first letter, published in the Review on January 2, 1864, she had already won another missionary to the Third Angel's message, the Australian Alexander Dixon. On discovering her new convictions, her missionary society relieved her from her duties. She was not discouraged, but rather visited the other mission stations on the west coast of Africa and left literature at each one. Then she returned to America, was baptized into the Seventh-day Adventist Church in South Lancaster, Massachusetts, and continued to distribute literature.
The Third Angel's message first arrived in Ghana through the printed word. In 1888, a ship dropped some literature sent by the International Tract Society in the coastal city of Apom, just down the coast here, the Gold Coast, now Ghana.
Mr. Francis Dolphine read the literature and became convicted about the Sabbath doctrine. In 1892, the General Conference invited Lawrence Chadwick to survey the missionary potential of the west coast of Africa. When his vessel reached the Gold Coast, he was welcomed enthusiastically by 3 or 4 dozen Seventh-day Adventists led by Dolphine. Chadwick had also found another group of converts waiting for him in Sierra Leone, led by a Pastor Coker, and yet another group in Liberia led by a Mr. Gaston, who had heard the Advent message on a trip to South Africa and returned to tell it to his people. The 13th Sabbath projects of the West Central Africa Division have been a major dynamic in the growth of this territory through its story of more than 130 years.
Mission Sonlight became connected to the West Central Africa Division when the 13th Sabbath mission offering in 2011 brought us here to the campuses of Ghana's Valley View University and abroad to Cameroon's Adventist University, Kosende.
I think Jesus' ministry was not one of preaching exclusively. Miracles and healing was a very big part of his ministry, and I think this institution, this new project will help us, the theologians, in our mission, because I would not like to go on the field and preach alone. I would like to see doctors and the nurses from this institution with me in the field and doing the work also.
Later in 2014's first quarter Mission Sonlight report, we took you to the nation of Senegal and the construction of a new project for youth and young adults seeking the special edge provided by an Adventist education. We also visited Gorée Island and its gruesome history connected to the vile Western practice of the slave trade. This was followed by a visit to Benin and a unique partnership to once again bring Adventist teaching to a Muslim school.
The church is in Benin since 42 years. But we don't have even primary school in Benin. And next year, or this year, will be the first time we have the school in Benin. And then it is a great joy for all the members in Benin, and also even non-Adventists, because they hear about Adventist school. We went to the Prime Minister in Benin. He said that he's heard about Adventists, but he never heard about Adventists in Benin. They knew about Adventists, their schooling, their clinic, but not in Benin. So it will be a great joy and also opportunity to help us to be open to non-Adventists in Benin.
Next, Mission Sonlight journeyed with you during the second quarter of 2017 to the territory of Gabon, inviting you to give to the expansion of Seventh-day Adventist schools of Gabon. You also supported a new youth center in Nigeria, reaching the Adventist, Muslim, and other youth across this area.
The construction of a new building shows how our church is serious about education. When the students attend, we teach them about Jesus. When they go home, they teach their parents about Jesus.
Finally, in 2020's third quarter report, Mission Sonlight brought you back to the exciting stories of Adventist education and the school at Sion, notably the location where the work of Hannah Moore, Rudolf Elbig, Ernest Flamma, and others began the church in Liberia. It is exciting to see the school pictured here as it rises from the literal ashes of its destruction during Civil War some 30 years ago.
I thank God for the 13th Sabbath offering to help us learn more for our future.
You remember the story of that small boy whose father was a chief priest, having a contact with a friend, a new friend, being invited to join the youth in their singing and playing and things like that, became an Adventist. And through him, the mother joined the church. And eventually the chief priest of that cult eventually became an Adventist. And even the young people can be an avenue through whom the Lord will win souls for His kingdom.
We often think of the 13th Sabbath offering projects as being isolated and independent, but here in Ghana they have seen them as a resource for learning how effective methods used elsewhere can be brought into their practice.
13th Sabbath and the mission programs or projects are a source of encouragement, and it's also a source of teaching, giving us ideas as to how we can do it differently. So these people are doing this way, these people are doing that way, these people are doing the other way, and so we can pick and choose and develop our own style, our own plan, or just employ what they are doing, and we use that, and many souls are being won.
This quarter will take you to the work in West Africa again, as we focus our attention on the work in Ghana's northern and southern regions. To the north, we will learn of women in training and in the practice of the medical missionary, and the impact they are having across this country and beyond. We'll also talk with Adventist chaplains serving the kingdom in government, medical, and educational positions. This 13th Sabbath, as you have for more than 50 years, you will have the opportunity to exponentially grow the kingdom by supporting women in the medical missionary work through your faithful gifts. How will you pray? What will you give? Consider it today and watch for your 13th Sabbath offering on December 30th, 2023. Reporting from the West Central Africa Division's Ghanaian territory, we are the media missionaries of Network 7 Media Center, and this is Mission Sonlight.